How are you? Welcome to a special presentation by Nuts and Bolts Sports. My name is Jeff Barnes, host of No Huddle Necessary, and I'm here with a special guest today. My guest today, former NFL linebacker, played for the Green Bay Packers, the Saints, the Bills. All right. Also, a alumnus of University of South Florida. He's a Bull. So we're going to get his thoughts today on things going on in NFL right now as far as training camps, and as well as see what he's up to now. So if you haven't heard of him, once again, we're talking about Sam Barrington. All right. Linebacker, played for South Florida, was once second team Big East. Also was a Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee with the Packers. So once again, I want to introduce Sam. And how are you tonight, Sam?
I'm doing great. I tell you what, I'm just leaving my office. I got out a little later than expected, but I think that's always going to happen on a Monday.
Absolutely. Listen, work, it is what it is. You know, office hours are what they are. Sometimes they go over. I wholeheartedly understand. Once again, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me tonight. For those that don't know, once again, I happen to be at a USF game and I see Sam walking by, and I'm the kind of person, I'm horrible with names, but when I see a face that I know, I have to say something to somebody and find out where I know this face from. So we just happened to link up, and it was a perfect opportunity with everything that's going on with COVID and how it's affecting every major sport, especially the NFL. We're getting ready for as training camps have opened. It is not the usual year for training camps. But first, let's talk to our guests. So we talk about Sam. What have you been up to since your days in the NFL?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going on 3 years retired for me. Actually, come September. It's been a beautiful process for a number of reasons. I think the thing I'm most happy about is to be somewhat healthy, right? Physically, you still get those aches and pains that start to kick in once your body settles down from all the strenuous training or whatever the case may be. But in addition to that, I'm happy to be able to spend time with my family. I think, that's one of the things, aside from our bodies, that we sacrifice the most. And I'm grateful for all the time that I'm able to spend with my family now. I'm in the construction industry now, primarily what I do for a living. I'm the chief of operations. My family, we've been in the construction industry for a number of years, a little over 25 in the West Africa market. And now we brought our business to the U.S. here 2016. And it's just been steady. It's just been steady growth. I handle all operations for our Florida operations. And it's just been great. It's been a great opportunity to work with family. It's been a great opportunity to do business in a great industry. We specialize in crane and heavy equipment rental, a little rigging and specialized hauling as well. And we cater to mostly the commercial construction space as well as the industrial construction space.
Gotcha. And we were talking about training camps, and we know the day three guys like yourself, especially when you come in, you were a 7th round pick of the Packers in 2013. You actually had a pretty decent stint there. You were there for 3 years. You were Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. Unfortunately, it didn't end up longer for you there, but overall, tell us about the experience of being that day three guy coming into camp, having to prove yourself every year.
So it was an awesome experience because it's the ultimate test. You're a young guy. You're coming on a roster with a ton of talent, a storied franchise. And what it looks like is you just get there and you're thinking like, man, I know what I'm going to do to get the job done, et cetera, et cetera. But you're still a young guy. You don't really know anything. You just know I'm going to go out there and ball. So fortunately, I went out and I put my best product on the field. And Green Bay, they actually cut 2 other guys and kept me on the team. So from early on, I saw, hey, I have value in this league. It's just about how much. So I continued to just work and get better. And fortunately, I was able to gain the start middle linebacker spot over A.J. Hawk in my second year. I went on to maintain the starting position my second as well as third year. And in my third year, I sustained a significant injury. So my fourth year, game 1, I wound up getting cut by the Packers in a very surprising fashion. And I went on to finish my career with the Kansas City Chiefs and the New Orleans Saints. But it happened so fast, but it was still a beautiful experience from day 1 on up to the last day I strapped on my football pads.
So when it comes to this situation we have now with COVID, there's no preseason games this year. Training camp, normally we're away somewhere now. Guys are isolated from their families. They're able to just focus on football. This year is not so much. Everybody has to stay home. Although they're really not allowed to go out and venture out into the community too much, they still virtually have all of the usual distractions they would have during the regular season now with training camp, and they're not even really fully practicing yet.
Right.
For those guys that are bubble guys, guys that are undrafted free agents, guys that have been special teamers for a couple of years fighting to keep their jobs. What does this situation do to those guys? I mean, because that's the big focus for a lot of guys like me that focus on the small school guys in the draft. Those are the guys that need the training camp. So without a traditional training camp, give us your view of how that's going to impact these guys the most.
So it's gonna impact a ton of guys. It's gonna impact a ton of guys. I think overall you're gonna see, and I hate to speak this into existence, but this is just a reality. Grow. It's gonna increase this year because guys, the best term I had a coach use for me was callous. Right? When you're training, when you're practicing, and during training camp, you're prepping your body, you're callousing your muscles to sustain you throughout the year, right? That's that in addition to the all-season training. So it's very vital, not just from a guy who's trying to make a roster spot. It's vital for the overall physical development that's going to sustain you throughout the season, right? Also, in addition to that, when you're getting those reps in camp, for some guys it's a lot, for some guys it's not a lot. It's going to help the quality of play during the season. So if you take that out, you're also going to see the quality of play go down. I think the group of guys it hurts the most to comment on what you said earlier is that second, that third, that fourth, fifth, sixth year guy who's on the bubble, who's always played special teams. I'm gonna tell you why. These teams are looking to save money in the year. We're dealing with not only a pandemic crisis, but we're dealing with an economic crisis. So these franchises are going to look to go the cheap route. So when you take that into consideration, in addition to the fact of what's going on with COVID and guys going to have to sit on IR, any young guy is going to play some ball this year. They're going to need to utilize their whole roster. If I got 4 linebackers that are going down, these are not only linebackers. That's my depth at the linebacker position. That's my depth on special teams as well, because any backup linebacker is playing special teams. So any young guy that's on the roster is going to get an opportunity this year, and I think it's going to kind of even out the loss of training camp.
Gotcha. We also had this offseason a new CBA put into place, something that was highly contested amongst the NFLPA. You had a lot of the rank and file players that were kind of favorable towards it because it had a lot of provisions that worked better for them. But a lot of the upper echelon players didn't feel that it was a good deal. So it barely passed. Now you have this going on where once again, a lot of the players said, especially the guys who have very little at stake during the preseason, say we don't want to play any preseason games. So at this point, do you think that could cause a rift within the NFLPA when it comes to players?
Well, listen, I don't know all the facts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know all the facts, but I think what players should be fighting for and what I would have fought for had I still been in the NFL and had the opportunity to fight on the behalf of other players for guaranteed contracts. That's when you take a look at it, we socially we're the sport that's doing the worst on the other side out. I don't know if the
Mm-hmm.
data supports that, but I know from a perspective or perception standpoint, I don't think one could disagree. In addition to that, uh, when you look at the revenue share that the players are getting in every other entity within inside the NFL, whether it be the clubs, whether it be media, or whatever the case may be, it's just it's not enough. And so you take a guy and think that's the most important part. That's what I'd be fighting for. I also saw that that the NFL passed a rule where there won't be, I guess, testing for marijuana. I don't really think that's a victim to heavily sway uh, acts. I do commend the guys who are fighting on the front line, trying to increase the right share of for the players, and I commend and appreciate the agents who are fighting for the better as well.
Gotcha. You know, and of course, we talked about your time at USF. New sheriff in town, Coach Jeff Scott takes over. Um, what do you feel the outlook is for that program?
Can I get you to say that one more time? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I know once again we talked about it. You're a USF alumni, and of course now we have a new sheriff in town. Coach Jeff Scott takes over the program after they moved on from Coach Charlie Strong. You know, how do you feel things are? How do you like the changes so far? Put it that way.
Yeah, so I think I think anytime a team has to fire a coach, I think it's an unfavorable situation. Specifically, when you take a coach and you immediately sever him from the relationship. I think in USF situation, I think uh, I think they had their expectations on what the program should be achieving. Strong will continue to do well as he's always had in this profession. So I don't, I can only speak on what I think because of the great hire.
Gotcha. Um, and speaking of your time while we were talking about USF, when you guys, and you're a Florida native, you're born and raised, right? Had a chance to choose. You guys were instrumental in bringing schools up, and we talk about the changes in college football in Florida over the years. When I was growing up, if you were a big deal player, it was three schools. It was Florida State, Miami, and Florida. You know, and you're I want to say it's hard to say your generation being, and I'm talking to a retired player. I'm actually older than this. This is one of those moments where it's kind of, but you guys kind of changed that that narrative. You guys are able to stay in state and elevate programs like UCF, USF, FAU, and FIU to the level that they are at today. Now they're all major college programs, as opposed to before they were considered mid majors and below. So, I mean, how does it feel now, seeing the growth of these programs?
Well, I love it. And although I'm a Bull, you can't help to appreciate what UCF is doing and becoming a national contender, and giving the AAC a real name, right? But for me, what it looked like, because I had all three of those universities offer me a scholarship. Urban Meyer was still the coach. Dan Mullen, who went on to Mississippi State, he was recruiting me. I was recruited by Clint Hurt over from UM, and then I can't necessarily remember who was recruiting me from Florida State, but I had all of those. I had all three of those in-state programs offer me. Coincidentally, UCF offered me third. Right, they were the third college to give me a scholarship offer. I took a visit to the campus. Just from what I understood football to be at that time, UCF just wasn't a big enough school for me. Their strength of schedule wasn't that great, whereas USF was in the Big East and UCF was in the Conference USA at the time. When I visited USF, I immediately felt at home. It was only a 3-hour drive away from my hometown of Jacksonville, Florida. And I think the most important factor was Coach Jim Leavitt. Jim Leavitt, he was a great coach for the University of South Florida, and I think he was a great leader. And I don't know if he gets enough credit for that because of his untimely departure from USF. But with that being said, you take a look at the guys that I had the opportunity to play with. George Selvey, 2-time All-American. Keon Wilson went on to play in the NFL. Carlton Mitchell, Jerome Murphy, Kayvon Webster, Jason Pierre-Paul, who's going to probably end up being in the Hall of Fame one day if he keeps going. Terrell McClain, great defensive lineman. Mr. Raymond, Nate Allen, just a ton of talent. And we beat a ton of schools. We beat Florida State my freshman year. We beat Clemson my second year. We beat Miami my second year. We went on to beat Nevada. And we just played some great football. We beat Notre Dame, which was a special win for us. So I'm happy at the decision I made. And I think over time, especially with a guy like Jeff Scott, that university is going to continue to grow, continue to blossom, and continue to be in the conversation for a national contender.
All right. And just to wrap it up, once again, I want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to me. It's been an honor to have you on. I would love if we have a chance to get you back on sometime in the future when you're not too busy. If you want, by all means, this is your chance to throw out your social for people to follow you.
Okay, sure. So follow me on Instagram at Sam Barrington. That's at Sam Barrington. Follow me on Twitter at Sam_Barrington_. And LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I think that's where Jeff and I had the chance to connect. I generally like for you to follow my story. You can catch me on YouTube or Facebook as well. Thank you, Jeff, for having me on. And it's going to be a great year for football if we get it.
Absolutely. And hopefully I'll catch you in the press box again. I don't know when that's going to happen with the way things are going right now. I don't think there's going to be too much press in there anytime soon, but hopefully next time, the next soda will be on me in the press box.
All right. I'm looking forward to it, Jeff. You have a great evening.
You too, Eric. All right. Thanks again. Once again, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Once again, that was Sam Barrington, former NFL linebacker, USF alumni, all Big East player for USF. And what can I say? We had some great content for you guys, great knowledge he dropped for us about what's going on with training camp. And hopefully we'll see some football soon. Once again, Wednesday night, 9 p.m., no huddle necessary, right here on the Nuts and Bolts Sports Network on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So stay tuned. Once again, thank you for joining us.